Coming up, we're talking about what's coming in the next few years to the theme parks in Orlando with Dewayne Bevil, senior reporter for the Orlando Sentinel, coming up next. This is the Diz Unplugged, episode number 652 for the week of October 15th, 2013. The Diz Unplugged is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel, experts at helping you plan the perfect Disney vacation. Visit them on the web at www.dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends, John Magi, Kevin Close, Julie Martin, back in the production nook, Huey, Louie, and Dewey. Craig Thompson on the switcher, Dustin West, and Sean Thompson. Why are you shaking your head at me?
You said Craig Thompson. Yeah.
Craig? I did. My God. Oh my God. Craig Williams.
Because I understand that
Dustin West and Sean Thompson. I know their names.
Because they're going to hyphenate, aren't they?
They are.
Thompson Williams.
Oh, Lord. And, of course, a very special guest joining us in the studio, Dewayne Bevil from the Orlando Sentinel, is here with us. And, over the last several months, we have been talking quite a bit about the various investments that are being made in the theme parks. And I think right now, in the last few years, starting with Harry Potter, it's just kind of been this new age of, mega investment in the parks. And we see really the benefit of competition as far as the guest goes, the benefit of competition between Universal and Disney, trying to one-up each other with these projects, of course.
SeaWorld and...
Well, SeaWorld, I think, to a lesser degree. I think to a somewhat lesser degree, SeaWorld. But certainly, you've got Harry Potter, and then there's, now we've got Avatar Land, and, Disney buys Star Wars, for God's sakes, and now there's a whole new land about that. And I just think this is a really, really interesting time, and I thought I've been, wanting to invite Dewayne on the show, and certainly all of you or anybody that does anything on the internet has definitely come across Dewayne's work. He is the theme parks reporter for the Orlando Sentinel. He's there at everything, and so welcome to the show, first of all, Dewayne.
Thank you very much. I'm one of the theme park reporters. We have...
That's right, you have...
a legion, no.
The Rangers, right?
A couple. Well, the Rangers are sort of, yes, but I'm sort of the last standing Ranger of the original Rangers, but we do have, Jason Garcia.
Well, of course.
And Sarah Clark, who are full-time attractions, tourism reporters.
Right, yes. And Jason, of course, yes. a good friend of ours, been on the show a number of times. The timeliness for this is good, too, with the announcement a few days ago, the update, I should say, about Avatar Land, which, the running question has been with Avatar Land, are they or aren't they?
Right.
Because they made this big announcement, and then everything got quiet, and all these rumors coming out of the battles between James Cameron and Walt Disney Imagineering. What have you heard? What have you heard about what's going on with Avatar Land?
Same things you all hear. I mean, for a long time, nothing was said. And there's a vacuum, and so people fill it with, well, it's not happening.
Yeah, and especially on the internet.
But even from the beginning, they were very vague about when. And it seemed far off. It was, breaking ground in 13 or 14, wasn't it? And even
yeah.
So it's like, well, what are we waiting on? And we still don't really know. But I thought James Cameron looked happy. He looked healthy and happy.
There's a lot of there's people on both sides of the Avatar Land, excited about it, not excited about it. We're just talking about that in the last segment. That Sean's not particularly excited about Avatar Land. I am. Mm-hmm. One of the things it has going for it, I think, is the fact that James Cameron's going to release at least 2 more films in the Avatar series, and I'm going to imagine that the release of the next film and the opening of this area of Animal Kingdom are going to be fairly close together, and could be very interesting. But it does, bring up the larger point. One of the things we have talked about a lot is the amount of money being invested in Universal by Comcast.
Right.
This incredible, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we heard $500 million a year is what they're willing to keep investing. And, that's an extraordinary number. Mm-hmm. But,
They're eventually going to have to build up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or down.
This after they sold off part of that land and built those apartments right there. So they could use that right now.
Well,
maybe they'll buy it back.
But this has also been part of the problem for Universal and the constant change of management. I mean, you had Vivendi, you've had Seagram's, you've had GE, NBC. Now you've got Comcast. They're changing ownership like underwear.
Right. They didn't at first. It didn't seem like they were interested in the parks at all. The current owners, and now, well, they must be. Well, you don't put money where you don't want to stay.
They see the money coming in from Harry Potter.
Sure.
I mean, they're like, oh, wait a second, really? We invested $200 million, and this is what we're getting back? Let's put our money in there.
But also, wasn't the expansion for Harry Potter before the sale?
No, I believe it was after.
Was it after the sale?
I'm almost positive.
I think it's after.
It's after the sale.
It's all over.
And that, of course, there's a lot of excitement generated around that, and when that's going to happen. And I wonder what the landscape of this town is going to look like 10 years from now with this mega investment going on.
Well, I mean, even get beyond the theme parks, Orlando itself is going to have to do some major infrastructure investment. Because when you look at I-4 and you look at all those surrounding roads, it's a mess out there. How are they going to handle that much tourism and the increase in people visiting? I think that's something they have to look at beyond just the parks.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to mention was that, how much more tourism can this town grow before real changes start having to be made? And where do those changes get paid from? We talked about that crossover bridge, the flyover bridge for Universal being paid for with tax dollars.
One of the things that one of our listeners just sent was, I apologize, Kenny, you sent me the information and I don't have it with me. Apparently the train, the high-speed rail, from South Florida up to near the port and then over the 528 corridor. And it's called something like Hello Florida or something like that. But I understand that's pretty close to being done or done.
I thought it was called the Sunrail.
Sunrail, yeah.
No, it's part of some other... Sunrail is partnering with somebody.
But that's the one that's supposed to go through Orlando. This is the one that's going to come up along the East Coast, I understand. Come to the near Port Canaveral and then come in via the 528 corridor. I think that's going to make a big difference.
Well, Dewayne, as somebody who covers this for a living, you make your living paying attention to this. What are you excited about? What stuff that's coming up are you're kind of looking at saying, okay, I think that's going to be really good?
It's kind of split right now because we can see Harry Potter Part 2, although it doesn't seem to change that much. You can tell they're working on it. But from what we can see, I take a picture every couple of weeks. It's like, well, this is the same picture as last week, but take it anyway, just in case. But actually, this last little round of Avatar got me a little more interested in it. I didn't care about the movie.
Okay.
They can make me care about Avatar Land, but it better be good.
Huh, yeah.
So I'm interested in what they've given us, sort of, although it didn't tell me anything. We read in the paper, they released details. Well, no, they released pictures.
Do we know where it's going to be in the park? Because there was all that discussion about how they were going to get rid of Camp Mini Mickey and
but they have been closing down that area, haven't
correct.
they?
So is that where it's going to go?
Yeah.
See, to me, that feels
I don't
like...
think they've actually said that, but yeah, that's why
indications
I run
are.
things, right.
To me, that feels like a very small area. I don't know what's beyond that.
It could go into a lot from there, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Disney's good at building theme parks on parking lots.
There's
and I also don't know if there's any unused land behind there. It could always be...
There's all that's directly behind Camp Mini Mickey is an access road that just goes all the way around the park. So they would just have to, move that over.
Push the park back into that area.
Yeah.
Well, and also, talking about land, and we're talking about Universal versus Disney, I think is one of the things that Disney definitely has in its favor competitively is the fact that they have a lot more land than Universal does. As you said, Kevin, Universal at some point is going to have to start building up because they just have no place else to expand. They did have a lot more land, which they, as you pointed out, Dewayne, they sold off to make apartments, which at that time they had to because of that.
Was that owner.
That was that owner.
Right.
And this has been Universal's biggest hamstring, in my opinion, has been the lack of consistency in management. Has led to a lot of different policies and a lot of different foot soldiers on the ground making different decisions, moving the company in different directions. These poor people don't know which way is up.
Right.
It seems like the transition from NBC Universal to Comcast, though, has been a lot smoother. It doesn't seem as jarring as it was when it went from Vivendi to Seagram's and those transitional periods. But I do think that, when I think about 10 years down the road, competitively, Disney still has the advantage. They have the consistency of management, and they have the land.
They have the land. They have the land. They could put even more hotels if they needed them, which is the secret. And Universal wishes.
Right.
Right, but that was also part. I mean, I don't mean to go back to the beginning, but that was Walt said. We have the blessing of size.
Right.
Yes.
So,
also, Walt Disney World also has the benefit of sort of in-house capabilities. If Universal wants to build a ride, they have to kind of go out of somewhere else and buy a ride mechanism, or they have to contract for it. Where Disney can tap their Imagineers and do it. So it seems like that's kind of
they don't do often.
Well, they don't do often enough for sure.
Well, they
use off the rack stuff a lot, but I think that they have
Doesn't go that much faster.
No, it doesn't.
So
the other problem is that, and I've pointed this out in the show before, Universal doesn't own a lot of the intellectual property that appears in its parks. From our standpoint, I'm imagining with the Sentinel, they don't give you the kind of problems they give us when it comes to taking photographs and video and things like that. That they are so, especially where Harry Potter was concerned. Oh my Lord! Well, because Warner Brothers owns the IP for that. Basically, they represent it on behalf of J.K. Rowling. So everything Universal did, I mean, literally, when we did our party there, credentials had to be approved by Warner Brothers before we could use them. I mean, it was insane. And Disney doesn't have to go through that. That was also, one of the advantages Disney had in building then MGM Studios, as Universal was building Universal Orlando, was that Disney could write its own zoning laws and approve its own permits because of Reedy Creek, whereas Universal had to go through the county and the city, and that took a lot longer. So that's why Disney was able to start MGM Studios after Universal broke ground, and they were able to open up several months before Universal did. And so I wonder how these issues are going to play out in terms of where Disney's advantages are. It doesn't seem to have hurt Universal in terms of what they've done with Harry Potter. It has been their game changer. It has absolutely been the game changer. All of a sudden now, they're playing with the big boys, and and you can tell Disney's worried.
But you think they were surprised, right? Universal with how well it went.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I get that impression that they were. I think they knew it was going to be good, but I think what their impression of good was at that particular stage of their life.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was well beyond their wildest dreams, and that's why I think Comcast is dumping out the wallet, saying, "Okay, here you go.
Good theory.
Here you go. Keep buying these properties. Every time I'm in that park, you're being surveyed." About what movies you like and what.
Don't you think they've done that for a long time? They surveyed me once about a Family Ties musical or something. It just seems crazy.
Okay.
These guys would be happy about that.
I'd go once, but they seem to ask things that
Michael J. Fox is a little bit old now.
Maybe it's some fancy surveying herring. I don't know, but
they're always doing it. They're always doing it. And they're also
long and tedious. Oh my gosh!
But there also seems to be a new, over the last few years, there's a new energy at Universal, and you can feel it. It's kind of like this excitement and success of Harry Potter has kind of permeated through everything.
Universal needs to do what they did with Jaws. Make way for something else. I kind of feel
a little more readily. Yeah.
I kind of think that way about the E.T. ride.
Oh, yeah?
I think that's a movie that's a couple generations old now. I think it's time. I don't think it has the impact that it used to have. I think it's time for them to freshen some of that up.
And I think one of the issues that they have with a lot, and I don't want to spend too much time on Universal, but one of the issues that they have is that Steven Spielberg is so involved in both of those parks to an extraordinary. That's one of the ways they were able to really get the doors open was Spielberg was on board. Spielberg was on board, and I don't think they can pull any of some of those attractions out, his attractions, without his blessing. And E.T., he's always talked about that is his that's his jewel.
It's the last original thing there, I think.
Yeah,
right.
That and Lucy, which doesn't count.
Well, doesn't really. No, exactly.
My favorite thing in Universal.
I actually like going in there, but yeah. I mean,
no, I love that exhibit.
I'd hate to see E.T. go away as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm sentimental about it.
It's a sentimental favorite. But one of the things I did notice at Halloween Horror Nights, and I mentioned this, was the the cast there at Universal in general was phenomenal, and that's where I'm saying it just seems like this new energy there that they're having success now, and it's kind of building on itself. And there's this real, and like I said, in talking with people at Disney and kind of knowing Disney from my angle, both from the travel industry side and from this side, you could tell while they wouldn't say anything outright. You could tell they were nervous. They were nervous about Harry Potter. And, I mean, they've been posting good numbers and stuff. But, at one point, Bob Iger said, no more capital investment.
Right.
And then they turn around and buy Star Wars.
Or they build.
No more, I wasn't talking about that. That's not a capital investment. And now we're talking, Star Wars Land. And, we had said that Cars Land was coming. I'm still believe it will. At some point, they're seeing how successful that is out there. And I think the more nervous they get about the expansion plans Universal has.
I bet the Iron Man ride that's going up in Japan comes here eventually also.
Probably.
You're talking about the change of landscape in the not so distant future. I see two things as far as Disney is concerned: revitalizing Hollywood studios, and in addition to the Avatar Land in general, creating Animal Kingdom Park to be a nighttime park completely changes the way I think you have your Disney vacation experience.
Well, it definitely had some options, and you bring up nighttime at Animal Kingdom. We were talking about that in the last segment. What does a revitalization of Hollywood Studios look like, though?
It looks like Star Wars Land
and Cars Land and
focus. Right. Focus is what that park needs. It is so all over the place in many ways, like Universal
Just
Studios.
like Universal Orlando, yeah.
It's anything that doesn't fit, and I've said this a million times, anything that doesn't fit into any other park, dump it into Hollywood Studios, and that's what you get. And it needs some focus. It needs that one section to be nothing but Pixar, and that one section to be nothing but Star Wars, and really get those themed lands together.
They also need to take out some dead wood there also.
Yes.
The Indiana Jones ride, or show, and cars, lights, and traffic lights are
That's gone, isn't it?
No.
It's gonna.
The stunt show's going. The stunt show they announced they were going to close and bulldoze. No, the great movie ride. Please, for the love of God, someone do something with that now.
I would like to see the Wizard of Oz
Yeah,
stay, and I'd like to see everything else gone.
Just ride through black.
I just think.
No, I mean like different movies.
I think those are classic movies. I think it's time to redo the movie at the end.
Oh, that? Oh, yeah. Where Bette Midler's still relevant.
Right.
Hey, now.
I love Bette Midler, but come on, she's,
The newest movie in there is from what, 1982?
Right.
it's a crazy.
It's like-
We've had a couple sentences.
It's like terms of endearment.
Right.
They added Forrest Gump, didn't you know?
Maybe.
So, I mean, we look at it like a tit for tat. We look at it like they're doing this and they're doing that. Is that something you perceive is going on in the industry, or do you think it's more of they're just doing their own thing and it just looks like you're going to build this land, so I'm going to build this?
I don't think it's tit for tat. I could be wrong. I think
You
there's
don't-
I think there's a bigger plan than that. And you're right. They could be nervous and change their mind. But I mean, how many things have I heard about Hollywood studios?
Yeah.
That's definitely going to happen. I started to make a list, but well, we're still waiting on one of them to happen. So I particularly with Universal, I think Universal has a plan, and they stick to it.
I think I'm waiting for
Disney will
Universal
flex
to announce that they're going to revitalize City Walk.
It could happen. Well,
Well, they're revitalizing downtown Disney.
they're building stuff at City Walk right now
I
for an
think-
exciting new announcement at a later date.
I think one of the things Universal learned was that one of the things that nearly decimated that park was Disney going to a new ticketing system a few years back. The opening of Expedition Everest certainly drew a lot of people away. Now, Disney had a legitimate thrill ride, and that drew a lot of people away from Universal. But then the ability to add the 5th and 6th day of your stay for another $10 or $15 when Universal was going to charge a $70 kept people, and those two things just seemed to...
Also, you look at things like Magical Express. Disney focused on the business of keeping people in their theme parks.
Yeah.
Where Universal focused on how do I get people to my theme park.
Right.
And who's the winner? Who's this coming out better? I don't know. I think it's...
Well, I remember the couple of years leading up to the opening of Harry Potter, it really did seem like Sarajevo over there at Universal. It was like a very like gray, cold place, and they were all very depressed because money was not good.
Well, you could see
attendance
the ski jumps.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like I said, Harry Potter opened, and I think they learned something from that. And I think that Universal is saying that when Disney makes a change, we have to figure out what its impact on us is going to be, and we have to counter it somehow. Because otherwise, we're going to lose the gains we've made. These are hard-fought gains for Universal. Hard-fought.
Well, this is another one of the reasons that we don't know much about Avatar Land. Because all that would do is telegraph.
Exactly. True.
To
That's a
everyone
very
else.
good point.
It's like, we're working on it. And, I like in the video, we are far from finished. You haven't broken ground. So, yeah, I agree.
But also, speaking to that, we see a lot more of that coming from Disney in terms of advanced information, which we never saw. You would see scrims and you would see walls. What are they doing?
Right.
Now they're more free with the information up front because they want to capture you and they want you to be invested in what's happening.
But they have a platform to do that now, wouldn't you say, in the Disney Parks blog.
And D23 as well.
And D23.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's because they finally realized that the true Disney fans matter.
right.
Someone at Disney finally woke up and said, listen, we have to really play to our Disney fans and give them this information because they're chopping at the bit.
Not only that, but they're doing the most advertising for Disney. The fan base out there, look at us.
Yeah, I mean, by God, we built an altar to it.
Right. So it's, Disney gives a little bit of information and we extrapolate on it. We're having this conversation.
So it's better for them to control that information and get it out the right
or
time.
at least get as he says, as Dwayne says, minor details out.
And that what happens is then that at least it seems like it's a long time that the information's coming because way back when they announced it, everybody thought it was going to happen the next day. We all want it to be now. We're all excited about it.
The announcement of Avatar Land was striking for its lack of detail, as you pointed out.
Yes.
And I think part of it. I think you're right. I think part of it is because they don't want to telegraph their intentions. But I think it's also a lot of it is probably James Cameron and Disney can't agree on exactly what it is they're going to do. And I think they had to make this announcement because they had to keep it. They were running the risk of it becoming just like urban legend, that it just simply wasn't going to happen.
Beastly Kingdom.
Right, exactly.
I also hope that some of it is because they have to invent technologies. I also hope that some of it is it's stuff that they're looking to do that's not out there.
Oh, I think you have.
Like it's not going to be a magic carpet banshee.
No. Look, we're talking about James Cameron and Joe Rohde. Okay, we're talking about two amazing creative minds here that have done already in their careers, respectively, incredible
Joe Rohde
things.
has a spinning Triceratops, so it's not out of the question that we put something else in.
He also has Expedition Everest with the Broken Yeti, but and that park in general. We're talking about, irrespective of Chester and Hester's, we're talking about two incredibly creative men with a very large budget.
Right. They're all going to have good ideas. It's just a matter of who we're picking.
Right.
Which ones we can afford.
Right.
Bang for buck.
Which one can we actually make?
Right. Which one will work? Right.
Yeah. I mean, Disney has always reinvested in its parks, and they've always tried to open something new every few years. It just seems like the competition has forced the dollar amount that they're spending on these things to go way up.
I think the other thing that it takes into account is something that we've noticed. If you put out hints for people, even when we talk about our parties and events, if you put out hints for people, immediately the hints go to a place that's not possible. And what happens is that just builds in disappointment.
Exactly.
All you're doing is disappointing people because their imaginations ran so far amok that no one could ever actually meet that. I mean, when we tell people we have a special guest, it's like we're bringing Walt Disney back. And then when you tell them what really cool guest that we have, they're like, oh. And you think,
well, that's why we don't announce it
right,
anymore.
That's what I mean, but we don't even give hints anymore about it.
But speaking of disappointment, this is a good segue into talking about Downtown Disney. Now, I'm not saying that the plans for Downtown Disney are a disappointment, but I'm saying what's been accomplished so far in that regard has not been.
It seems like closing the parking lots was a little putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I think so too.
Why don't you start something before you close every parking lot at Downtown Disney?
Because already, because parking was so easy as it was.
Right.
I mean, it was so easy
There's
to
only
get
so many places behind Cirque du Soleil.
No, seriously, the first time we went, when they had first closed those parking lots, I told her, I'm like, where are we supposed to park? I said, if you're going to close it, at least put some freaking backhoes or something in the parking lot to make me think you're going to do something.
Right, make it look like
Make it look like you're working.
Let's just talk about the larger issue, why they're having to do it in the first place. In the 80s and 90s, Pleasure Island was this hot place, and it drew all these people in. There was always, every time I would come down during that period in time, Pleasure Island was always hopping, and then it changed, and it changed for City Walk, which is why they were talking about revitalizing City Walk, because that model doesn't work anymore. And
it happened to Church Street Station too.
Yeah, Church Street was the first casualty.
A couple of times.
Church Street was a casualty of City Walk more than anything else. It was a casualty of City Walk. City Walk is more locals. Church Street was more locals. Disney was always tourists.
Yes.
You had some local traffic there, but Disney was mostly tourists, whereas Universal and Church Street Station were both more local. And when City Walk opened up, that was just pretty much the death knell for Church Street.
Yeah.
And Church Street was cool, too. I mean, it still is now. It's starting to come back. It's starting
Nothing stays there. I mean, it
because
doesn't last.
They can't make the money.
If I don't know what that is, maybe you should explain it for our
Okay,
viewers and
Church
listeners.
Street Station is an area downtown.
Downtown Orlando.
Downtown Orlando.
Right across from the Orlando Arena.
Amway.
Across from the where the Orlando Arena used to be, across from the Bob Carr performance.
Bars, restaurants, stores,
Nightclubs.
Nightclubs.
It's mostly nightclubs and restaurants. There are no there's no shopping.
Okay, well, they used to be, but it's gone through a lot. Like I said, we were just talking about that. The opening of City Walk pretty much destroyed that. At one point, that was kind of hot, but and they're trying to bring it back. They're trying to, but Disney Springs, Dwayne, what do you think? Are they? The plans that have been announced, do you think they're moving in the right direction with this?
Wow. Huh. Well, I guess we'll see. That's a big non-answer. I feel like.
Are you excited about the new shoe store?
It feels like
Right.
a staring contest. We keep looking at it and nothing happens. Well, they tore some stuff down. So
Did they close the parking lot?
But it's
in a
hard to
weird
get
way,
ex-
that was progress.
But it's hard to get excited because so many plans have been released and then nothing was done.
Right, and so
'Cause
and that way I'll take some destruction. Those things were dead to us anyway; they were gone. But even when the drawings, and I'm all about the drawings, you can't really tell. It's like there's water there. We go out there and look at them, and does
those
that mean
big,
mannequins
sketchy
is coming
people.
up or down? And it's not like it's a blueprint. It's
It's just
something
rendering.
like this. When they're clear, they don't have tenants for all that, or they would tell us.
Are you one of the people that would like to see mannequins revived?
Yeah, I guess I am.
Okay.
But
Tom-
I'm not one of those people who believes that it will happen.
Well,
in any
we
form.
have one of our special correspondents, Tommy Sandvik, is like he carries the torch for mannequins. He's,
Right.
He like ready to chain himself to the place to make him reopen it. And there are some people out there. There is a cult following for mannequins,
And the Adventures Club.
And the adventure.
and the adventure. Well, even more so for the
That was
adventure.
more culty.
Why not bring that back somewhere?
Like at City Walk.
In some other, in some iteration of it. I mean, it's all about money talks, and
Yeah.
those things weren't generating the capital to keep them going.
It had a very diehard fan. They're kind of like the folks that like the Titanic. The ship sank. It's not coming back.
So the reality of it is that Disney has to
Kevin
figure
is
out.
harsh.
Really
Well, it's like
I know.
Yeah,
love
yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah, when the first closed, every break, they're going to bring it back at Christmas because it's busy then. Then spring break, and then for like 2 years there were the rumor rounds about that, and I thought, no, it's cobweb.
and it would be great at like Animal Kingdom Lodge or something. Put it out there or something.
But mannequins?
No, Mannequins was cobweb like 2 weeks after it first opened.
yeah.
Those things were dusty for a long, long
Oh,
time.
right.
Oh, Tommy Sandvik is just he's plotzing, watching this, plotzing.
So what does Disney have to make Downtown Disney into? What do they have to create down there to bring people in?
The downtown Disney
Shopping.
at Disneyland.
Yep. Because so far all they've done is rearrange shops
But
and
don't
bring
you-
in a few new ones.
But don't you think the Downtown Disney at Disneyland is successful because you have to go through it to
Yeah.
get to a park? I believe that's why
But every
it's
time
it's a
you
big
go down
part,
there,
but-
there's a performer.
Yep.
There's a live performer. There's a live artist.
Well, let's go there. What is it you think they should bring from Downtown Disney and Disneyland and try and recreate here?
Different restaurants, different shopping. I think those are destinations. If you asked me, I think Disney would benefit from a high-end shopping area. And I mean, look at the way those Dooney and Burke purses sell.
Yep.
And they're $200, $300.
Yeah.
I think that I think there are people who come to Disney who are looking for that high-end jewelry piece, for that high-end artwork. And I don't think there's a lot of places where you can buy that. They're selling the same imported souvenirs everywhere. However, I think, they're talking about talk about a niche market. They're putting running shoes in, and you can test them out by running around inside the store.
True.
So I think if that's the case, you could do that with other things. Look at the way Trendy took off. Because you could only buy that stuff, and it was a little higher end than what's out there in Trendy.
Right.
So I think Disney needs to explore that market. Like they did when they first opened, everything was sort of specialized. You couldn't buy the same souvenir in every single shop you went in.
There's successes at Downtown Disney because of what they are. Earl of Sandwich.
Yeah.
Tremendous
That's a good
success. So they have to do is they have to look for those individual things and not sort of worry too much about the whole theme of it.
Right. Wolfgang
Is this
Puck
gonna
has
fit into
a couple different outlets that are all successful.
But the Disney Springs project seems like they are trying to make that theme now, and have things that kind of support that.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't go to Downtown Disney that much. I live in town, but when I'm there, it's crowded as heck.
Right.
Yeah.
So they don't have to do too much.
But the other
Do more
nice
of
thing about that is that
and
takes
Disney
up,
Springs kind of strings it together.
Right.
Right. It's also an entertainment area that doesn't need an admission.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's one of the things that after you've walked those parks, it's nice to go someplace and hang out. And I think a lot of people hang out at Downtown Disney.
They even hang out in the Pleasure Island part, and there's nothing there.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't want to see empty storefronts, but
And perhaps
my
that's the
goals
answer.
for fantastic new things, my expectations, they may be one at a time, and
Right. And
we'll
also
never know
as-
when it's done, kind of like Magic Bands.
Right, exactly.
As locals, we have different needs
Yes.
than as tourists do.
Yeah, I don't want a Publix over there, but
Right, exactly. But we also, Kevin makes a joke about fancy running shoes over there. I can't imagine, we have the outlets. You can go buy your sneakers in the outlet. But there are people who would probably look at that as a cool thing and a cool destination.
Right. And that's like, it's like buying a souvenir from a foreign country. I just bought something that I can buy any place in the world in Germany, but it was cool because I bought it in Germany.
You bought it in Germany, exactly.
I could buy it in Millennium Mall, but it's cooler because I bought it in Germany.
People can say,
So
"I
I
bought
see
this at
that I
Disney."
see that people who are racing at Disney or running at Disney will think it's cool to buy running shoes at Disney.
Yeah. Sure.
What about Disney capitalizing on some of their biggest events? What about Food and Wine and things like that go on, and the Festival of the Masters that are a weekend? Why not try to capture that all year round? Why not have an artisan community down
I don't know if it's just our friends or if it's just because we've talked it up, but it seems like the excitement around Festival of the Masters weekend this year has exploded. I understand.
I noticed that,
There's
yeah.
not a lot of hotel rooms left. That people are having difficulty getting in that weekend.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And it's a good weekend. It's the end of Food and Wine. It's the beginning of the Christmas party, and it's Festival of the Masters.
And I'm
There's
hoping it's
also
going to
a-
have beautiful weather.
There's also a race that day. It's
cooler weather.
There's a race. Is it the what is it? The 5K?
I think they're all that weekend. The Food and Wine Classic.
Okay.
They're I'm sorry. The Food and Wine. The Wine and Dine is what it's
Wine
called.
and Dine.
Right.
So I think having that level of event there, I think that seems to be what Disney does or Disneyland does. They have
every weekend.
there's always a live performer outside, and I'm not talking about those schools that come and sing.
No.
I'm talking like there's live performances there.
People who are trying to make it big, people who actually want to be musicians and artists.
And I understand that they have the talent pool because they're in Los Angeles, but there's a lot of talented people.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, if you're going to give them a stage in downtown Disney in Florida, I'm pretty sure some of them might fly in.
Yeah, could be. Could be. I'm interested to see what Downtown Disney eventually turns into when they're done. I think that, the plans for Disney Springs look good. whether or not they'll actually do them.
I apologize.
And that's the sad thing, is that they've announced and pulled back and changed so many times that people have kind of lost faith in this. And I think that was one of the reasons that they had to say something about Avatar Land, because it was starting to happen with that too. You made this big announcement. You're saying you're going to make it, and now you're not. So people are starting to wonder, what's going on. And that's some of the stuff I look at that tells me that, something must be spooking them somewhere.
Do you think that Disney focuses too much on new hotel rooms? Because sometimes it feels like the announcement of a new DVC property or the expansion of a hotel is bigger than what's going into our theme parks.
Too much? I think they focus on it for sure. A lot of times on the Parks blog, you'll read along, because now that's kind of where they break news. And if you don't read to the end, you don't find out what I want to know, because the top of it is about the hotel rooms.
Right.
So it's like keep reading. Oh, and it'll be open in November. Oh, okay. Let's flip this all around and rewrite it.
But the thing is that is a hotel room, no matter how they decorate it or what the theme is, that you've got that built.
Right.
At least on paper before you ever announce it. So, there might be some minor changes. When you're announcing a new theme park attraction, there's a great deal of creativity that goes into that they might not want to leak. Announcing DVC properties at Grand Floridian, everybody's like, oh, yay. But, the excitement kind of dies off after that. There's not a lot of speculation anymore. It's going to be a new hotel room.
And we see pictures and you see mock-ups.
But even there, the announcements and the plans and the expansions are seem to me much more epic than they used to be in terms of their size and the cost and the scope of what they're doing. I think back to the days when they opened Mission Space and they opened Soarin', and it seems quaint by comparison now to the New Fantasyland, Avatar Land, Star Wars,
Are we
Harry
so
Potter.
jaded we can only have a land? Is it no?
Well, no. What I'm saying is, no. I'm not saying that we're so jaded. I'm saying that
that's what I'm saying.
Something. There's got to be some competition going on here, folks. Because, like I said, think about it. Remember when Mission Space opened and how excited everybody was, and oh my God, Mission Space, Mission. It seems downright quaint now.
And I think
by comparison, because of the scope and scale, and I think it has a lot to do with the competition. I think it has a lot to do with the sense. I also think it has a lot to
do with what Dwayne's saying. We've made an announcement in October of 2013 for something that's going to open up in 2017. I find it hard to maintain that level of excitement.
Right.
Especially for a movie you didn't like.
Well, okay, the trees are going to light up. Woohoo! I'm almost as excited about the Grand Floridian DVC. I think to myself, it's hard to maintain that level of woohoo for 4 years.
Although speaking of Grand Floridian DVC, very nice job on that, Sean. The blog.
Thanks. Yeah.
Saw that, and Sean put a blog up recently on the.
Yeah, that opens later this month. So when it opens to the public, we'll go and get more photos and probably some video too.
Awesome, but like I said, it just seems to me like the scale of all these announcements is getting bigger and bigger, and it smells to me like one-upmanship.
Well, Disney's also they've also shot themselves in the foot with some of these grand announcements. We're going to announce this on Good Morning America tomorrow. This hype that it's going to be webcast to the world, and then you find out they're getting new faucets in the Grand Floridian.
Yeah, exactly. They've done that a few times. They've done that, But I think they've learned their lesson from that. I think they learned a lesson from that with D23. They had people guessing and all this stuff, and there was all this speculation. Then when they announced it, everybody was like, some people like me were angry.
Do you remember when they had the people climbing down the side of the buildings in New York?
Yeah.
And it was like they're getting new carpet on the Magic, and you thought,
well, that's actually a really good point too. You talk about the competition between Universal and Disney. What about the cruise ships? The cruise industry is incredibly competitive. So Disney has to revamp their ships and put, water slides and water things on it to have one-upmanship for other.
And then you have Royal Caribbean responds to that with the the arm that comes off the side, it dangles you off the side of the ship.
Right.
No one else seems to see a problem with that.
At some point, at some point, they're just going to attach you to an arm off the side of the ship that dips you in the water as it's going by at 20 knots.
You're out in the middle of the Caribbean in a glass bubble 300 feet above the ocean.
that's not happening.
We just watched a roller coaster break down.
Which is, subject to salt water and corrosion.
What could go wrong with a mechanical arm at sea?
So, I think this competition is everywhere, and I think Disney feels it and responds to it. And they could just sit back and say, you know what? We fill our hotel rooms, why should we bother?
But, where you talk about cruise line, now this is, again, one of these cruise ships, one cruise ship is basically the price of like a theme park. It was $1.1 billion, I believe, each for the Dream and the Fantasy, and it cost them about that to build Animal Kingdom. But again, being 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was, no more than that. God, it's been like 15 years. Yeah, okay. You look at that, and these investments pay off for them, no question. Dream and the Fantasy have been doing awesome. Their occupancy rates are fantastic. They're the envy of the cruise industry with their occupancy rates and the amount of money that they're getting for a stateroom. But yet, there is nothing, not even a whisper about new ships. Nothing. And that kind of surprised me because we always heard whispers well before the Dream and the Fantasy announcement. There were those whispers going around that there were some new ships coming. And we had heard that they were planning a roller coaster on a ship, which ended up being the Aqueduct. Right. And but we'd heard that, years before the plans were ever announced. I hear nothing.
Well, if you look at Royal Caribbean, you can actually see that their opinion is that the cruise market is changing, that they have sort of reached the apex of the size of ships, that now they're going to go back down and make them more intimate experiences with horrifically dangerous things that will dangle you over the ocean. But there's going to be bumper cars, and that bumper car arena is going to turn into a basketball court, which is going to turn into an ice skating rink, which is going to turn into a nightclub. So it's not the imagination, it's just that the size has gone down. And I think that there's definitely, they see a shift in the way people want to travel. So I don't know, maybe Disney's waiting to see what the shift is because they went bigger. Should they go smaller?
Well, I think the larger decision for them is, do they want to remain a boutique cruise line, or do they want to compete as an actual line against Royal Caribbean, Carnival,
the difference
Princess?
Is then it's going to affect the price point.
Well, they're going to have, like all of these other cruise lines have, they have to have ships that are a little bit less expensive and ships that are a little bit more expensive. Right now, they can get away pretty much with charging the same thing. The way they get the prices on the Wonder and the Magic is they put them in the Mediterranean, they put them in Alaska, and they bump the price up. They've got their two biggest and brightest out of Port Canaveral now. And so that, just by virtue of the fact that they're the newest ships, they get to charge a premium for it for a few years. But I wonder, is Disney going to be happy with that boutique status? Like, we've got our 4, maybe 5 ships, 6 ships, and that's where we're going to stop? Or at some point in time, is a decision going to be made, okay, we really want to be in the cruise line business. We've gotten this down. We know what we're doing, and we're going to really make an effort to become a line. We look at Royal Caribbean, 24 ships in the fleet. Does Disney start buying other ships and retrofitting them to build the fleet faster? Is one of the
I would be surprised if Disney ever did that. I don't know why. I don't see them doing that.
Yeah.
You never know.
But that's just...
It's all speculation. This is
you're
all speculation.
Spending a lot of money there. You're spending a lot of money there.
Sure, absolutely.
If you've added 2 more, you've added 2 theme parks, and when did they ever do that?
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying, with all this capital expense going to Avatar Land and Star Wars and all that other stuff, I don't know how much money is left over for cruise line. So are they? What's that?
They spent their allotment. It was only 2 years ago.
I know, but like I said, I really would have expected that we would have heard some kind of rumbling going on about possibilities of new ships. And
there are people out there who watch the shipyards very closely, and they're online and they check out their schedules, and there's no whispers of a Disney ship 3 years, 4 years down the road.
Right, exactly, because these that's right. These shipyards are booked up well in advance. So it takes a while to build one of these things. So it's it'd be interesting to see. But cruise line's a good point. That where's that going to be? Where's that going to be 5-10 years from now?
I would like to see Disney open in the United States a boutique park similar to Disney Seas. With that, I've never been, but all I hear about is the level of creativity there is above and beyond.
I've got to be honest. I'm stunned that Tokyo or that Disney Sea or some version of it hasn't come to the U.S. Given that it is widely regarded as the best Disney theme park in the world.
Right.
Everyone I know that has gone there has said the exact same thing.
I've never heard a negative word about it.
No, and very surprised that hasn't worked its way back over here. But we'll see. It's all speculation. All see what's going to happen. But I love the competition. I love the competition between Universal and Disney. And, I feel like we did leave SeaWorld out of this conversation. And not that SeaWorld's insignificant, but SeaWorld just kind of seems to exist in its own niche to a certain degree. That it's I don't know. I think it's a very well-run park. I think it's a very immaculately maintained park.
Another thing is Legoland. They're expanding. I just saw the advertisement. I have virtually no interest in Legoland. I'm less.
But they've already opened a water park, haven't
right,
they?
But they also do the Duplo area. Those are the bigger blocks.
The who?
Yeah, the bigger Legos.
The Duplo area. The Legos are small, and then for younger children, they have the Duplo box, which are bigger.
It's a toddler area.
Right.
Yeah.
They've opened up a new area there, so they're still expanding too.
Which is good because the first time we went, Ferris and Finley were much younger. It'll be 2 years ago on Ferris's birthday. They were barely big enough to do anything there. I mean, besides maybe like some slides and stuff, like all the rides were for kids older and taller. And I'm like, this is like the smallest little theme park I've ever been to, and they could not hardly do anything.
How has attendance been? Do we know? Have we heard?
Well, they're expanding, so it has to be.
Yeah,
Well, they're expanding, but I mean, there's into a place they already were.
But they're making modifications then
Right.
too. So
Right.
there's
So
got to be
they're
some.
closing the barn and putting 3 new things in, but
There's
there
got
were
to at
3
least be
things
enough.
were.
It's
There
in the
has to
middle
be
of
some.
nowhere, too.
There has to be some sort of profit for them to keep doing this, don't you think?
They love their sweet spot of 2 to 12 that we in town
Does that
do
mean
not
yes?
understand. It's just like, what? They're closed 2 days a week.
Well,
We in town do not understand this.
Exactly.
But it works for them. They have 1 shift. It's
And-
different than what we have here.
Well, they're also, like you said, they're out in the middle of nowhere. Well, that means lower taxes. That means lower pay. That means they can afford to run at a cutback budget.
I mean, it took us an hour and a half from our house to get there.
But when it first opened, I went out there and was talking to random mothers with strollers. So what do you think, et cetera, et cetera. And, well, what do you think about driving all the way from? And they're like, we're from Brazil, and so this is like across the street. Relatively speaking, an hour isn't that big a deal. You're not going to go every week anyway.
You talk about an hour and a half from your house. It takes us almost an hour to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, I think once people pass Disney, they imagine that it's kind of like that old map of the earth. You're going to fall off the edge.
You won't, by the way.
Right.
You made it back. Good for you.
But I haven't been out to Legoland. There's nothing there that sounds like it's appealing to me.
They could have built Avatar there land.
Yeah, it's not for you.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Is there room in Orlando for another theme park? Not Disney, not Universal, not SeaWorld. Could Hershey come out here? Could Six Flags? Is there enough?
I think if
business?
Six Flags was going to, they would have already. I don't think that.
That's like a 25-year-old rumor.
Yeah.
Six Flags is coming,
Well, we've got
But not
Busch
recently.
Gardens. Busch Gardens is
Down in Tampa, though.
closer,
So.
but it's an hour. It's an hour. It's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But it's closer to a Six Flags park with the amount of rides that they
Correct.
have.
And the type of rides, yeah.
Right. So that's I see that as direct competition.
And I think in terms of, is there room in town for another brand theme park like Universal or Disney? I don't know. I think those two pretty much have sucked the air out of the room.
I
Just
don't
ask
know
the
that
fun
there's
spot.
Yeah. It's just,
However, have you seen the Fun Spot recently?
Yeah, it just scares me. I'm never going there.
it's scary.
I know, but
They've added like 4 new rides,
Yeah.
and the rides are like intertwined with each other. But I think my point is that now that we're coming out of a recession, we see Orlando building more rooms, more housing, more things like that. I think there's room for more here, whether it's in
And-
a theme park or beyond.
Every time I drive past a patch of undeveloped land, I'm like, okay, what's going to be there in a year?
Right.
What if Legoland had been where Splendid China was?
Oh,
Then it would be
Huge.
right there.
Right there.
It would be different than anything else. And
Splendid
didn't they
China.
try to do that?
I don't
Is
know.
that rumor? Is that fact? I'm supposed to say only facts.
I don't know. I don't know.
Are you surprised Splendid China lasted more than 3 weeks?
Well, that
never
was,
made it.
but that was owned by the Chinese government, wasn't
I
it?
think so.
That was actually like a Chinese government place that was owned by the government, which, who knows what was going on there. All right, well, we are out of time, but I want to thank Dewayne Bevil for taking time out of his schedule and joining us here, and hope you guys enjoyed it. We're going to be back with you again next week with another edition of the Des Unplugged. Thanks for being with us, everybody, and remember, stay out of the damn lakes. Have a good week.